Ian, tell me about your program. You've had a very successful year over in Europe.
Yeah. So we've been making some changes to the bike over the last few months. Some weight saving, some changes to the cam timing system, and some other little nitty gritty parts that have allowed us to step the performance up a little bit. So it's been good.
And I guess in with your eyes on weight savings, you all did a fairly radical thing to start the year off. You went to basically a high gear only setup.
Yeah, so the idea was we wanted to try a high gear out, but we wanted to do it very easily and simply. So we didn't do anything sophisticated apart from build a jack shaft and use the existing clutch and change that. The idea was just to get some data about should we want to go direct drive in the future, what we would need to do to make it work properly. So we got all the data we wanted, and now if we want to go ahead, then we know where we want to go and with what. The question is, will it make things substantially better by doing it or not? And that's still the open question, because I'm convinced we can run as well with the jack shaft system, but I'm not convinced it's going to bring a lot to the table. And the weight saving actually wasn't really advantageous overall.
Oh, really?
I mean, there was a weight saving, but it didn't actually make the bike any quicker or any easier to ride or anything else. In fact, arguably, it meant we should have changed everything on the bike. The centre of gravity changed, there's lots of different things that happened, so the weight transfer was different.
No, I can imagine. It almost seems like to benefit from that, you'd really have to start with a whole new chassis.
Yeah, really, you need to build
because there's a lot of space in there that probably wasn't being properly filled.
Absolutely, and as you said, that is the main thing really. You'd have to start from the ground up to do it properly.
Yeah.
So, retrofitting it is interesting for data purposes, but it actually brings you to a conclusion that you wouldn't want to just do it on this bike. You'd have to change it substantially.
You've been riding this bike once annually, or one meeting annually. I heard you talking to Danny Vogt just a bit ago about getting back on the bike after a year off.
Yeah, well, this year actually we changed some other things in the weight saving exercise. We dispensed with the previous aluminium aluminum, as you say here.
No, I like the I keep my aluminium in the garage myself.
Cool. Right. We changed to carbon fibre, so it's all fully carbon fibre bodywork now. So there was a big weight saving there.
Right.
But obviously with Phil in the saddle, he preferred a different riding position. So although he's not tremendously different to me in terms of height, he liked something different. And I've got to get used to that. It's a little bit more uncomfortable for me to ride than it was before. So there's little things like that make small changes.
In pictures, he seems to sit fairly high on the bike. Is that what is that?
I just think
his feet are up higher or something.
Well,
something looks different.
Yeah, I mean the way the seating position is now, you sit more down in the bike, which tends to then put you more upright in the bike, whereas before I tended to lay down on it more.
Gotcha.
That it looks different, but it's this bike's always been a bit more sit up and beg style, a bit, if you go back to the days of when Elmer was riding it, the one thing that struck me with his bike was how upright he was on that bike. So he wasn't really laying down so much. Mm-hmm. And actually I prefer that anyway. That's how I built this bike originally, and Phil continued in that vein. So it's not a lay down bike, and we're not tall guys, so it's more difficult for us to lay down and keep control of the long motorcycle anyway.
Mm-hmm. All right. So last night you were on the second fastest run of the evening.
Yeah, which was totally insignificant at that moment in time, because Larry, of course, had just run his 550.
Right.
Raising the bar a little bit again. I mean, he said it was because we got so close to him with our 560s that his 560 wasn't enough.
Which is true.
Probably it wasn't. But I mean, obviously their race operation and ours are sort of chalk and cheese in terms of, experience, which is the most important thing I have to say. But also, the sheer amount of professionalism that the McBride team bring to their class, and it's really as close to being professional as you can get, from a financial perspective, and their access to parts and what they do, and their as I said, their experience is major. They always do well, but we are really a small trailer team from Hicksville, UK.
Well, they do have, between Steve, Larry, and Roland, they have a huge amount of experience there.
Yes.
But your team, you can't sell your team short. The team actually is kind of right there with on the experience level.
Yeah, no, we do have a lot of championships behind us and some good performances. I think, but part of our mission has been to race as cheaply as possible, as successfully as possible. I'm not saying anyone else does anything different, but I'm quite passionate about trying to encourage other people into this class, which is very difficult, and I want people to be able to see that there are different ways of racing, and there are sometimes more cost-effective ways of doing things than in the way other people do it, and that's it. I mean, there's nothing special about that. It's just that we want to, I don't want people to not do this sport because they think it's, or this class because they think it's too expensive, because it's not.
Well, I wouldn't say that you ship half a dozen motors across the ocean with you, but you do have you're the only one out here with a global international brand on your motorcycle.
Yeah, but I mean, again, we probably, we're very grateful for the support that we get from Gulf Oil International, and obviously to be associated with such an iconic brand is very cool. But at the end of the day, it's like anything, there's not huge sums of money behind that. It's more to do with their support and their passion for motorsport and our passion for what we do and their brand. It's not big. It's not a big bucks deal. It's just a nice deal, to be able to carry that, as they call it, the orange oval.
So when you walk around Goodwood in your Gulf livery, does anyone mistake you for a reincarnation of Steve McQueen?
I have to say no. I don't know why, but no. I mean, it's again. That's the point, isn't it? I mean, the Gulf Oil brand is so cool, and that's why people choose to paint their vehicles that colour without being paid to do so.
Right. Right.
So, and it's just cool anyway, because the association with Gulf brings a lot of added benefits, not financial ones, but we get involved with Aston Martin, we get involved with other Formula One teams, and there's a lot of things we do hanging out, so it's all good stuff.
Speaking of Aston Martin, they ran a Gulf livery a few years ago.
Yeah, so actually at that time the Gulf Le Mans team were our sister team, so we were the bike team, and Aston Martin, which is Pro Drive, they were the Gulf car team. Actually, that's changed because now Aston Martin have switched camps to Total, which is a French automotive lubricants and fuel purveyor, and Gulf now, they sponsor Porsche, so Porsche now, which is more their iconic home, because obviously the Porsches in the Gulf livery going back to Le Mans, that's and Steve McQueen in the film, that was what it was. So Porsche and Gulf are actually much more closely associated than Aston Martin.
That didn't keep what's his name, David Richards?
David Richards.
Yeah, from coming under your tent with along with Ron
David
Dennis.
Richards and Ron Dennis. Yeah, so we were, they asked could they come and visit our team and have a look at what we do, because they were intrigued by stuff and they heard about our team and top fuel drag racing, and they hadn't had any exposure to it before. So we said no problem at all. So they come along, spent quite a long time with us asking questions, and
What kind of questions do guys like that ask?
Well, the first thing was they were amazed at the horsepower we were making, because obviously Formula One cars, although the pinnacle of motorsport excellence, even the current iterations of cars are about 900 horsepower.
That's with both the hybrid or the electric and
with the KERS and the combustion. So that was the one thing, but the other thing was really about how I mean, they're amazed that we have to do all this without an ECU. That in fact, all the fuel injection systems, all the clutch management systems, all that stuff is done by us with our calculations, with our calculators, our air meters, and how you have to really understand how an automotive, as they call a high-speed internal combustion engine, works to be able to tune it without the help of a black box. So they were intrigued by that stuff, and then how we made the stuff and the fact that we made it ourselves, you know, and a bit about Puma, and yeah, it was. I mean, really, it was very, you know, there were very in-depth questions and very interested about the materials we use and all this sort of stuff.
So Richards didn't pull out the checkbook and have ready for ProDrive to acquire Puma.
Well, I mean, you know, poor old Ron's out of work at the moment.
Yeah, right.
You know.
I was going to say, what is it? That was my next question. What does he do for a living these days?
So I think he just counts his half share in McLaren Technologies, to be honest. So I think I believe he's still owned, you know, but he's not working there now. But no, I mean, those guys are very wealthy. I mean, Dave Richards is now
have to be, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Dave Richards is head of the MSA, which is the Motorsports Association, which is like ACUS in the US. But also, you know, he was head of Aston Martin as well as his Formula One teams before that.
Right.
I don't think they're short of, should I say, purse money.
Whatever happened to, I can't think of his name. That just is getting straying off the point. Flavio
Briatore.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, after
Alonso Gate.
Well, I mean, yeah, that, but you know, after bedding a succession of supermodels, you know,
right?
60 years
of age. How does he do it? How does he do it?
Hey, what? It's that question, you know, to one of the supermodels. So, what attracted you to the multi-millionaire Flavio Briatore then? You know.
Well, could it be that Heidi Klum was short on cash? I mean, how is that possible?
It wasn't just Heidi Klum. There was about 3 or 4.
Yeah, but she's the one that comes to mind.
Well, you know.
She's the one that actually had a child, right?
Yeah, but you know, Naomi, you know, and other people, you know, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, amazing. But you know, these Italians, silver foxes, you know, silver-tongued, and you know, bank accounts to wow the world. You know,
right.
Even I might go out with him. Not really.
Right. All right. So, I mean, clearly you want to win. You want to come out of here with the win. But let's talk about numbers. What?
Well, I'd like to come out with a win. That's not quite. Actually, what I want to come out of here with is a PB, a personal best.
Right.
Because obviously I haven't had the chance to ride the bike since we've upped its game.
Right.
So I want a chance to do that. So and that's my number one priority. And
which would be what's your current personal best?
582, I think.
Okay.
You know, and now we know it's got 560s in it.
Sure.
So now whether we achieve 560s here is very doubtful. Mainly because we haven't got enough experience on this track and the way the track, you know, works.
Sure.
The track prep's so different to what we're used to. And obviously it's a year since I've been in the saddle anyway. But you know, holding the throttle open from one end to the other shouldn't be difficult. So you know, it has possibilities, but I don't know. Next step, as I say, would be to make some laps, make some rounds. Then the final one would be, you know, if we could, you know, take away a win. But you know, that's so far in the future. The number one thing, really, anyway, is just to come here and have fun, hang out with all our friends from the US and our fellow racers, and you know, just be part of a great fun show. You know, Manufacturers Cup and Jay Regan and Hingle and all the guys that made this happen, and then particularly from my point of view, you know, John Morgan, you know, has done an outstanding job of helping us to be here on more than one occasion. John and Dee is his wife. Joe Koenig's helped us out as well. Again, steps up to the plate, and you know, and my team, and then finally, of course, Fast Phil, allowing me to ride what is his motorcycle now, not my motorcycle.
Right. Yes.
So
I knew that.
Ultimately,
I knew that.
Thank you. You know.
However, one reading your press releases would not get that impression.
No, absolutely not. No, it's about the team. You know? No, I mean, it's sort of interesting because you know, it's still the King Racing team. I still help Phil, I run everything. My team members are still working, and Phil, has a gifted life as a top fuel bike rider, you know. But,
Yeah.
you know, he's a good guide, he's a good racer, and he's a good friend, and you know, he brings a lot to this sport, not least of which youth, although he's not that young. Yeah, no, it's very cool to have Phil on the team.
He might be the youngest. I guess he's the youngest in top fuel motorcycle.
No, actually he's not, because I think the youngest is Jan Sturla Hegre, which you won't know, but he's a Norwegian rider. He rides a four-cylinder Puma.
I know the name.
And there's
we've covered him
maybe
in
Rene van der Berg is
Okay.
younger.
Okay.
You know, I think Phil's 72 at the moment, so you know, maybe not.
Anything you want to point out on the actual motorcycle? We've been standing here alongside the motorcycle, but we haven't.
There's not a lot I can say. I mean, it's been well covered before the bike. I mean, it's
Yep.
the bike, and you know, does a good job. You know, our chassis, our engine, our valves, overheads, all the tricky little bits that we knock up for this. You know, we sell to anyone that wants to buy them.
So what's next for the Puma brand?
Well, we've been asked over the years to do a number of interesting projects outside of drag racing, which we've taken on.
Which is why Ron Dennis and David Richards were visiting you.
Could be. But yeah, we've had lots of opportunities to try different things out, you know, by making stuff for other people, and maybe that's the way forward. But you know, Puma's just a hobby. You know, I work for Suzuki Motor Company, so I don't really have a lot of time. Phil now is my business partner in Puma as well.
Correct.
So we've become part of Puma recently. So between us, we're looking at other avenues, you know, to develop our product line and our expertise. But to be honest, it's still a hobby, and I think it'll always be a hobby. You know, it's a not-for-profit organisation. I mean, we sell these engines for, you know, cost plus probably a few bucks. Seriously, I mean, but the idea has always been to provide, you know, cost-effective engines to the class to keep the class going.
Outside of top fuel motorcycle, is anyone using one of these motors for anything else?
Well, I mean, obviously, you know, there's a few funny bikes and that use them, but we've had a company that have one of these in a team have one of these in a snowmobile. There's a sprint car that has an engine in it. But to be honest, you know, the point with these engines is they're heavy because they can be. So anything that relies on a good power to weight ratio or relies on it, they're not the best thing, of course, because they're built for strength,
right.
You know, longevity.
Right.
You know, it's very rare to break one of these engines. You know, if people break stuff, they break the parts inside it, not the cases generally.
Right.
As I say, I think it'll always stay a hobby. I mean, once it becomes a full-time employment, I think I'll lose the fun from it.
Anything else you'd like to add?
Oh, as I say, I mentioned all the guys. Thank you all to all my sponsors. You know, thank you to John and Dee Morgan particularly. Thanks to my wife for allowing me to ride one more time. And thanks to my fantastic team who, you know, have worked with me for a very long time and do a fantastic job keeping me safe.
Let's see, we've got Marius, Martin, Nick. Who else? Who else with that?
So we got Marius, Michael Beaumont. He's my long-standing crew chief from way back when. We've got Martin Brookman, who's the ex-Grand Prix mechanic. We have Nick Pepper, who, you know, everyone knows him for riding Pro Stock bike and running Suzuki Performance Spares. And then I have my West Coast team, which is the John and Dee Morgan team, effectively. So, you know, we have John himself, of course, and Randy, John Edwards, and of course, who can forget Mike Woods, who does such a sterling job making this bike look as pretty as possible.
All right. Well, we'll reconvene, hopefully in the winner's circle.
Thank you.
Yep. All right.